Kate.
What's up, Becca?
Good to see your face.
Good to see your face, looking adorable.
I don't know how we haven't done this in 3 weeks. Like,
It's a little weird, huh?
yeah, I don't know. It was like, I don't remember what, 3 Fridays ago, or 4 Fridays ago. I don't know. However, the first Friday we missed, I don't remember why. Probably depression.
Yeah, probably depression.
The second Friday was Frank was at my house, but also trying to get to New Jersey with a broken down truck and fixing it on his own by himself. So proud of him. It was awesome. Just a couple YouTube videos and like replaced an entire alternator. Sounds like really high level mechanics to me.
That does sound deeply impressive.
I don't even know if he had the right tools. I just knocked on my next door neighbor's door and asked for their tools, and they brought out like a Rubbermaid tote for him. And I don't even know if he found what he needed in there, because I was like off, I don't know, walking the dog or something. I don't even know.
Doing a thing.
Yes. But then we had last week, which was, it wasn't just that Frank was in town, it was also that the guest canceled. And it just seemed like too much work to scramble and, you know, Frank stuff and find a new guest and all that. So we were just like, yeah, let's just call it. It's dead. Time of death this Friday, whatever that Friday was. Which, by the way, it was so wonderful having Frank in town, and I'll tell you more about that later when you ask me if I've had my shit together. And all
in its order, right?
Right. And then last Friday I was still recovering from COVID, so we just didn't do it. So yes, COVID part 2. So
basically we're slackers.
Yeah, we didn't have our shit together for 3 weeks in a row. That's not how you do a podcast. That's how you like have a podcast that no one listens to, because they never know if there's going to be a show coming out or not, and they just forget you exist.
And then they would,
but that's okay, because I don't feel like
saying that we were upset about it. And so I know I got thousands of messages. I'm sure you did too. It was all
well, that's the thing, right? I was like, no one's even gonna notice. No one listens to our show. And then yesterday, Manny was like, my friend, our former guest, was like, so no podcast for 3 weeks, huh? And I was like, you're keeping count? You noticed, and you know exactly how many Fridays it's been? What?
Like, I'm impressed and like a little weirded out and grateful.
So Manny, this podcast is for you.
This is for you, babe. Also, happy Pride from Atlanta. It's Pride weekend.
Oh, cool. And do you know why that is? Do you know why it's in October instead of June? Because I do.
I have no idea. All I know is that one weekend, it was the same weekend as Dragon Con. And that was just like, I don't know if Atlanta ever recovered from the amount of sheer glitter that was just everywhere. It was like worse than spring pollen. It was glitter covering every surface, and everyone was in heels. Everybody, all men, all women, all folk in between.
Okay, so the reason that some areas celebrate Pride in October is because it is LGBTQ plus History Month.
Oh,
yes. That
was June for some reason.
No, June is the commemoration of the Stonewall Inn riots.
Oh, okay.
Which is history, but it's not a whole month dedicated to history.
Oh, okay.
So
why October?
I don't know.
Things are coming out of the closet.
I don't know. Oh, that's hilarious.
Thanks. I thought maybe it was just garbage, and you're like, I'm gonna ignore that. I'm like,
no,
that's fine. I don't always have, like, my timing's not great. Get it?
I was busy thinking about what I was gonna say next. We're so out of practice.
I know.
Speaking of closets, I'm in a closet right now.
I was about to ask you, like, why do you seem to be in a closet? Are you okay? Is there something you need to tell us, Beck?
I'm experimenting to see if this makes my sound quality better, or if you really just have to buy expensive equipment to make your sound quality better. I want to find out before I start my second podcast with Maria, coming in about probably 5 years at the pace we're going. But it's going to be a good one.
Podcast, experimenting with our podcast to make sure your next podcast is better. Cool.
Yes, because we have a bullshit comedy podcast where we can go 3 weeks without airing an episode.
True.
But Maria and I are going to do like a journalistic type podcast where we record every episode before we release the first episode.
It's going to be serious.
And there's going to be no laughter, only tears.
Yes. Sorrow. I couldn't imagine hanging out with the two of you and it being serious for more than 35 seconds. And that's if you tried really hard.
Well, I'm going to write down everything I'm going to say before I record it. And then I'm going to write down every question I'm going to ask people before I interview them. And I'm going to interview them like all at once and then edit their answers into different episodes depending on what subject we're addressing during each episode. It's going to be very boring. No one who likes this podcast should listen to the other podcasts. I am not cross promoting.
I don't know, dude. It sounds interesting to me, but that's probably just because I experienced it. So
yeah. So wait. Back to what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
I totally can't remember if it was about Pride or
Pride, October, history.
Oh, so
Yeah.
So sneak preview. Our topic for today does have to do with an October holiday, which is this Monday. Is some people call it
Indigenous Peoples Day.
Right. Some people call it Indigenous Peoples Day, and some people call it Columbus Day. And I think we're going to call our episode Columbus, Do You Have Your Shit Together?
Did he?
Well,
some of it, maybe.
Maybe. I'm not sure. It depends on which book you read.
Doesn't it always?
but that leads us to our first question, which is, Kate, did you have your shit together this week?
Or did I have my shit together this week? You're gonna have to pause that because there's an unwanted friend in my room and I need to destroy it. Edit.
It's not a squishmallow, I guess, and it's not a cat. You wouldn't destroy those things. It must be a bug. So you're not Buddhist then, because you're fine with killing bugs. That's good to know. That poor bug probably had like a family,
so many children,
a husband at home waiting for her to get back, or him waiting for him to get back. It's a gay bug, I decided, since it's Gay History Month. And that poor bereaved husband with the children who will probably soon be orphaned when their single dad has to go out and find them food, and you also
when their father dies of a broken heart because his husband never came home.
Yes, there you go. That's better than a double murder.
Listen, I'm fine with spiders, but if palmetto bugs come into my house, I'm sorry, they look enough like cockroaches, they will die violently with more screaming usually. Usually there's a lot more screaming, but I was trying to be circumspect due to the serious nature of our podcast.
Yes, come on, get it together. This is a very serious podcast.
It's a serious podcast. I got to get my shit together. Was my shit together this week? Actually, yeah, it was. My shit was actually, well, I'd say 80% together. There's some stuff I haven't tackled, but that I'm going to tackle today. But yeah, I had some interviews with Georgia State, and I got some appointments taken care of, and yeah, actually, I kind of had my shit together this week. I guess I'm just feeling kind of like I didn't, because I didn't have a lot of work this week. And that always makes me feel kind of nervous. I'm like, where's all the work? And it's coming. I have appointments on the schedule, just I didn't have a lot of appointments this week. And so I felt just waiting around to get something done. So, but yeah, I have my shit together.
Can I ask about the money situation before we switch to me? Like, is everything picking up again with that? Are you feeling better, feeling safer?
No, but I might have food stamps. That's what the interview was.
Okay.
And if I do get food stamps, then that will help me to pay my bills, like get caught up in my bills, because food costs a lot of money, especially when you're feeding a teenager. So yeah, so that'll help me get caught up in my bills, and then and then I'll be feeling better.
So loyal listeners, loyal viewers, tell your friends about this awesome podcast that comes out whenever the hell it feels like it. And maybe we'll get enough listeners and viewers that we can monetize, and Kate can feel better about money. It's really on you, viewers/listeners.
Yeah, it's all you.
If you don't do this, like, I just put all of the burden of Kate's finances on your heads.
Has nothing to do with how hard I work or how well I manifest or anything like that.
Or whether or not we take our podcast seriously and put it out every week.
I take it as serious as death.
So basically, we try not to think about it. Whenever thoughts of it come into our head, we banish it with frivolous distractions. Is what you mean.
That's correct. Frivolous distractions for the win.
Okay, so you were so kind and asked me if I had my shit together, and I refused to answer. I will answer you now. This has been a very frustrating week for me because the first 2 days I did not have my shit together. I was feeling very I was feeling like lethargic, but not in like I had like brain lethargy. I could not activate my brain to begin tasks. I just couldn't.
Yeah.
And on Tuesday, I bought a new little nose cushion for my CPAP mask, and I've been sleeping much better now. And so on Wednesday, after a good night's sleep, I was ready to go. I was ready to kick this week's ass and like make up for all of like Monday and Tuesday's inactivity. And that's when the week said, "Oh, too bad, so sad. Fuck you. No, no matter how hard you try, you will get nothing done."
Oh no.
I have. It's another one of those Secretary Mayor Pete Buttigieg 3-hour early dismissals from work today, and I'm not going to benefit from it because I'm just going to stay online till I get all of my work done, and then I'll probably be up late trying to get all of my like outside of work done. I don't know, it's been a shit week. It was like computer problems. It was just all these roadblocks kept popping up whenever I'd get in the zone and I'd get focused on a task. Something would pop up and distract me from it. And that was more like when you texted me all those questions and I sent back like all the crying emojis, like too many questions I can't answer. It was more like I had been hyper focusing and I couldn't like leave the hyper focus to answer your questions. Well, it was two parts. One question was about dreams and one was about the podcast, and that was just my brain just couldn't come out of the hyper focus and answer.
I totally understand that.
And then because I was in the hyper focus when I got the questions and completely overwhelmed by them, I forgot they existed. So I didn't even have my shit together in answering your text messages. I'm going to say no. I did not have my shit together this week. I tried really hard to get my shit together, but I did not have my shit together. Let's hope I get my shit together this weekend. The end.
Support you.
Love Becca. Thanks.
Support you.
So we have this great holiday coming up on Monday that some people like to call Columbus Day and some people like to call
Indigenous Peoples Day.
So what do you know about this holiday, Kate? Because I learned some fun facts about it.
Well, not knowing the topic of our podcast or if we were going to have one this Friday, I did not prepare.
Well, I did come up with the theme like as I was signing on to Zoom this morning. So
that's cute. So
didn't prepare either.
I was raised believing this was a celebration of when a European person stumbled upon the American continents and began the European invasion of these continents. And
except you're using language to say it correctly, but that's not what you were told as a child. They didn't use the word
European. Told as a child, we were celebrating a brave European explorer who adventured forth on one idea and came upon two new continents to plunder, to explore, and it was awesome. And then all of Europe decided to come here and take over all of this beautiful unoccupied territory full of wealth and really interesting food that, God, what people were Europe even eating before the Americas were discovered? I don't even know. Lard pie or something, and apples. I mean, apples are good, but like, come on, the rest of it. Anyways, I can get distracted easily. So that's what I was raised with. And as I got older, that sort of soured for me.
So sidebar, I just noticed your like autumnal themed like orange and purple matching your background and on your body. I just wanted to call that out. That's awesome.
Thank you. I just tie-dyed this yesterday. It was yellow. I tie-dyed it orange because I'm trying to find a way to make myself love the sweatshirt because I love how it feels, but I don't like the way it fits.
It's super cute right now.
It is cute. I still don't like the neckline, and I'm probably going to have to do something about that, like I always do with every neckline ever.
Do you remember Dickies?
Yes. Speaking of necklines, yes, I remember Dickies. Did you have one? Or five?
Oh my God, so many, so many. And it was so uncomfortable having a collar and a tiny little like bib with buttons hang down from your neck. And then the sweater was touching the rest of your skin with no shirt underneath it.
I hated the look. I hated the idea.
I'm pretty sure that whoever invented Dickies never had to wear a fucking Dickie.
That person probably wore a t-shirt so their skin wasn't next to the sweater, and then put the Dickie on and then the sweater.
But even if you wore a t-shirt, like you still had the sweater on your arm skin.
Your arm skin. We can't defend the arm skin. I don't know why that struck me as really gross.
Not my arm skin.
Not the arm skin. No, I know exactly what you're talking about, but I think we're assuming we're talking about wool sweaters, because that's what we had when we were kids. Not like
literally
super soft sweaters.
Oh my God, yes. The only thing they dressed us in the early 80s was wool.
Yeah.
In the winter.
Why?
In the winter. Wool and itchy tights.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, granted, Maryland did get a lot colder than Georgia.
Yes,
but not as cold as like Massachusetts or something. Like lay off the wool.
I'm really wondering, like, did people not use the heat as much in the 80s? Was it not like, because I remember
costly.
Don't you remember bathrobes and housecoats being more of a thing? You never even hear anybody say the word housecoat anymore.
Yeah, and like, well, see, I wasn't sure if that was because I live in Georgia now, or because like my children are like, why is it so cold in the house? Can we make it warmer? I'm like, we can, but why? If we keep it at 60, we can wear sweaters.
So maybe people were just like, they had different priorities and they just saved their money for other stuff other than their heating and cooling bill. And now we're just like, I don't know, like, it's my money and I'll spend it on what I want. And I want it 80 degrees in my house in January. I'm gonna walk around in shorts and a t-shirt.
Yeah.
In January.
Ew.
Yeah.
Ew.
I don't know. Anyway,
I like sweaters. Huh?
Columbus
Sidetrack. Beth, what did you learn about Columbus Day / Indigenous Peoples Day?
Well, I pretty much grew up with the same message as you from school, but then at home I would get a conflicting message that it wasn't, and so Frank and I remember it differently. We were talking about this before the podcast, but my memory was my parents would always get indignant when we would see when they would see like the Christopher Columbus homework come home, and it wasn't an Italian who found America first for the Spanish Queen. It was a Portuguese explorer. Portuguese explorer found America first. Like that
makes
big,
sense,
like,
coming from your parents, though.
Right. That was the big rebellious belief that my family held. However, we have come to know that we probably shouldn't glorify a plunderer who,
Rapist.
Slavist, is that a term? Yeah. Anyway, yes. So lately there's been a push to recognize this second Monday in October as Indigenous Peoples Day. And either this year or last year, I didn't do very thorough research. President Biden was the very first president to recognize officially Indigenous Peoples Day and celebrate it alongside Columbus Day. He didn't get rid of Columbus Day because he didn't want to be, I don't know, impeached.
Controversial and offensive?
Yeah, I mean, apparently saying Indigenous Peoples Day is already offensive, but because some people think, just because something's been one way for a while, it should always be that way, which is something that I really take issue with, because slavery was that way for a really long time, and so was segregation. So just because something's been one way for a while doesn't mean that you should just like marry yourself to it with no deeper dive into why it is that way. So
otherwise, like, do we not love science or truth or accuracy? And also define a long time, because the United States of America is really not that old.
Well, that's the other thing,
Babies.
right? I mean, that's like a really good point because I mean, we act like we're so big and established and important, but you go to Europe and we're just a baby country compared to them. Like our oldest United States built American whatever building is like it doesn't even like they have buildings that are like I don't know, a convenience store and it's been around since like, you know, the gladiator days, you know, and they use it as a
Yeah.
convenience store because old buildings are nothing over there in Rome because all the buildings are ancient.
Yep.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
was in
So,
Ireland and we took a walk one morning just to take a walk. And like we happened upon this old stone building that was a kid's school, like a primary school. We saw the cornerstone. It was like 1245. I'm like, this is so much older than the country I'm from. Anyway,
exactly.
yeah.
So, how did this start? That's what I wanted to know. How did Columbus Day start and when did it start, right? Okay. So, um we know that little rhyme that in 1492 Columbus sailed the ocean blue, which my dyslexic brain always remembered as 1942, which I knew wasn't right, but I couldn't remember where the like I just knew the chew was last.
Yeah, me too,
Um
because it rhymes with ocean blue, but I always mixed up the rest of it. Always, because yeah, numerical dyslexia. Good times.
so apparently and I'm getting this from NPR and the Washington Post just to cite my sources, not that we're making money off of this so I can plagiarize all I want and no one will ever know because no one watches this but Manny, and Manny, don't tell on me because you like me. All right. um so there was this author Washington Irving and he wrote a history and the life and voyages of Christopher Columbus in 1828, and that's where we get a lot of the highly fictionalized glorification of Christopher Columbus, that he was kind to indigenous people and went out of his way to make them feel safe after he recaptured them when they tried to escape. um so it was
Maybe he was
also
kind by his own standards.
so it was also responsible for the incorrect belief that Columbus is the one that proved the Earth isn't flat. Yeah.
Really?
Yes. And
Like that was a widely held belief at the time?
well, that's what I was taught. Like he was the first brave person to sail off the horizon. Like everybody was like, "Don't go that way in the Atlantic Ocean." I don't even know if they called it that yet. And you'll fall off the edge of the earth. There's nothing when you go that way. When you go, you know, west away from England or Spain or wherever you're leaving the European coastline, you're just gonna fall off the edge of the earth. There's nothing over there. And actually, before you signed on, Frank and I were talking, and he gave the reason I was telling him he would make a great teacher is because he had taught me how this Greek um philosopher, I don't know,
Mm-hmm.
maybe another day this weekend Frank and I will record just me and him and he'll fact check me on all the things I'm remembering incorrectly.
The
um
Greeks, the Egyptians, and the Arabians all knew that it was around planet
but
ahead
he
of
actually
time.
told me this really cool story about how this one Greek guy, I don't know what his job was, I don't know, maybe he owned like a donut shop and he was just really smart. I don't know if he was a philosopher, a scientist, or what.
A
But
baklava shop. Come on.
okay, okay, yeah, but I mean, like, don't be so stereotypical. Maybe he was the first person to bring donuts to like ancient Greece. You don't know, Kate. You weren't
I
there.
don't know. I don't know anything. I don't know anything.
I mean, like, you might think donuts are an American thing, and maybe they're actually Grecian.
Actually, I don't know.
You
I
you
don't know
colon
where donuts come from.
you colonializer. That's not how you say
Colonists.
that.
True.
Colonizer. That's the word I was trying
Colonizer.
to say.
Colonizer. It's true. My
So
ancestry is like 100% European. I'm a
that's okay.
cracker.
I'm 100% Portuguese, so I just my ancestors helped capture all the slaves
And
and
plunder.
profited off of selling them to yeah. So he this Greek guy did some really cool mathematical scientific research into shadows and times of day and distances between wells and towers, and realized that for them to have no shadow um at different times of day meant that the earth had to at least be convex
Mm-hmm.
and not flat. So anyway, um back to Columbus. So also people think Columbus discovered America. That was another false belief that I had, at least. I was taught that he discovered America. He found the Bahamas.
Yeah.
No, he found some islands.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I guess Europeans went up from and down from there.
Well, it was somebody else whose name I recognized from history class. Somebody else actually found like part of Florida, and somebody else found some other part of America that sounded familiar. And I don't remember any of it because, whoops, that's not this kind of podcast. Hey, if you want a history podcast that teaches you accurate history, get the fuck out. This is
Go to
not that
stuff
podcast.
You missed in history class. Because that's a great podcast that I watch every week.
If you want to listen to two middle-aged broads that have no idea what they're talking about, you've come to the right place.
Here we are. Enjoy.
Okay, so in 1891, fast forward to 1891, America's a country now, right? 1776 is when we declared independence. Okay, so 1891, we're a fully established country. We've already had a centennial celebration, and we're well on our way. One of the largest mass lynchings in our history occurred in New Orleans. There were 11 Sicilian immigrants that were on trial for killing a police chief, someone in law enforcement, and they were acquitted. So everyone felt like the white people in New Orleans felt like the jury must have been stacked with other Italian immigrants, like sort of the very first mafia.
They felt like the verdict was incorrect, and so they took matters into their own hands. Yeah.
Yes, but even more than that, it was like the first instance of people sort of saying like the Italians are organizing, like organized crime, like mafia.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
They're pulling strings and working behind the scenes, and they pulled strings to make the jury stacked with mafia people, even though they didn't really use those words yet. That's when they started to think of that concept. I don't know if that part's true or not. I didn't research that far into it. I don't know, but they were very angry that these 11 immigrants were acquitted. Italian people were thought of in very, they were the lowest of the low. They were, I was reading somewhere, I think it was the Washington Times Post, like the words used to describe them were really slimy, bad words. So they were second class citizens. They were discriminated against to begin with. So yeah, they were taken out and lynched.
We never do that with any group of people today. Certainly no immigrants I can think of.
Or, Black people who get killed by the police and then, protest in the streets. And yeah, we would never like villainize them for trying to. Yeah. Okay.
No. So or Latin Americans who do all the jobs that other people are too snobby to do.
Yeah, we would never just dump them on Martha's Vineyard where there's no resources to help them at all, and now they're just homeless among rich people. We would never do that.
Nah, I mean, I wouldn't.
Oh, but if only you were in charge.
If only. What a chaotic but fair mess that would be.
So after this happened, the President Benjamin Harris had a problem because something was going on with the Italians in Italy, some capitalistic money type thing. The Italians were like, we don't want to do business with you anymore because you're killing our people over there. You suck. So as a way of like
mollifying,
trying to clinch that deal and get it back on the table, he declared it's been 400 years since Columbus set foot in America. Let's create a holiday in his honor, Italians. Let's honor this Italian explorer that we couldn't have America without him. And
even though he's really Portuguese.
Well, no, it wasn't that Columbus was Portuguese. It was that there was another Portuguese explorer that Frank said was Magellan. Oh, okay. So that my parents would always say. But no, some people think Columbus was Spanish, but no, he sailed for the Spanish queen and he claimed land in her honor because he couldn't get anyone in Italy to pay for his boat. But he was Italian. He was Italian.
Oh, okay.
So yeah. Like he left Italy and he went to the Spanish queen and he sucked on her toes until she said yes. I don't know.
hey, whatever gets the job done, you know. We do what we gotta do. If it means getting slutty, huzzah for being slutty.
So the first Columbus Day in 1891 was celebrated so that America could make a trade deal with Italy and make money, and profits have always ruled America. It's always been about the money. If you are a conspiracy
Capitalist
theorist,
society.
yeah, if you're a conspiracy theorist and you're trying to like say like the Democrats are the reasons for everything evil in the world, like just look at the money.
Aren't
Just
they?
follow the money, man. Just track the money, because it's really going to Jeff Bezos. He's the one who's getting all the money. All right, I'm not going to talk about Jeff Bezos this week. I promise. The end. We're gonna have to do a Jeff Bezos. Do you have your shit together podcast? Because I got some shit to get off my chest
Okay.
about that man. All right,
I know nothing about him. Very little.
So just I think I have a couple more things about Columbus Day, if I can remember. Oh, I was just gonna say that we sort of like, even before the first Columbus Day was celebrated, we sort of did already credit him and glorify him for our country, and that's why a lot of things are named Columbia, like the District of Columbia,
Where you were.
Columbia, Maryland, and yeah, all the things in our country that are called Columbia, including my Colombian coffee that I made this morning that came from the country of Colombia, right?
Okay. Probably.
So,
which is odd because, like, in Italian, I think map maker named America is the one that named the continents and that
America Vestigio, right?
Yeah,
something like that.
Something like that. And now I'm like, how is it that so much has come from one map maker that was like, you know what, I'm going to name it after myself. Nobody else has a name for it, so it's Frankland or something.
So that's literally like, think about the name of your state. It's a woman's name. Think about the name of my state. It's literally Mary Land. Yeah. So what else was I going to say about this? Oh, I was going to say that, all right, Indigenous Peoples Day. Let's shift towards Indigenous Peoples Day and why it matters to us. Okay. So we believe, without sources, at least I do, I shouldn't be speaking for you, Kate. I believe that I'm not saying like I'm ashamed of myself to live in America and be an American. I'm not ashamed of myself. Like, I was born here and, you know, whatever. But I do think that we should look at history with our good critical thinking skills. Like, when we say critical race theory, we're not saying that we're criticizing anyone. We're saying that we're using non-emotional, logical thinking to review the truth of history, right? Isn't that what critical race theory is?
That's the intent of it. Yeah, okay. That's not how some people are interpreting it, but that is my understanding of what it's meant to be. Not like some you white people are bad, but more like, let's actually cut through the propaganda and the emotional attachment and look at the facts, you know, and so that we can be a truthful, so we can continue to build our country on honesty, which I think is really in keeping with the poem that was spoken at Biden's inauguration. I hate it that I have forgotten her name.
Oh gosh, she's gorgeous. That beautiful
young woman girl who made the gorgeous poem. I hate myself for not remembering. Look it up while I'm talking.
Oh, wait, Frank just said it. Let Frank say it again.
Amanda Gorman.
Thank you. I knew it was Amanda. Amanda Gorman. Thank you so much. Amanda Gorman. She one of whoa. I got so excited that I tipped over my tripod. Okay, Amanda Gorman, I mean, the whole poem was really beautiful, but one of the things that she said that really gave me so much hope was that our country isn't broken, it's growing. And that really touched my soul, because it's true. We have a very young country, so of course we're going to do all these stupid things, and of course we've been living on this propaganda as children do. And now we've reached like teenagerhood, ugly acne phase, awkwardness. And we're like, and just like teenagers, we want to know the truth now. We don't want to hear the bullshit anymore. We want to know what the truth is. And so we're all going to be angsty about it.
Santa's not real, and the tooth fairy isn't putting $1 under our pillow. We know that now, right?
Hush about the tooth fairy. Sammy just lost some teeth.
Oh, fuck.
It's okay. He doesn't watch it. I just got to the bank and got the gold dollar coins myself, like this week. Shit together.
Another
Anyway,
sidebar, Charlie, the kid next door, got $20 for a tooth the other day because the tooth fairy couldn't find anybody to break her 20.
see, I leave like gold dollar coins and a trail of glitter and like gold footprints and like
Oh my
usually a
God, that's
little
awesome.
note and some kind of weird thing and like it like because like what kind of real fairy's gonna leave cash? Come on, fairies don't deal in cash. Bullshit is that?
Oh my God, I
Besides,
love
I
that.
saved the life of the queen of the tooth fairies back when I was a teenager, probably on my way back from your house. And so since then, she's owed me a life debt. And that's the story I told Rosie as she was growing up. And I started doing tooth fairy shit for her. And I was like, listen, mom and dad are going to leave cash under your pillow. Just like be cute and be like, oh, I got the cash. Don't worry, I got the hookup. I know the queen of the tooth fairies. I
Oh
got you.
my God, that is so fucking cool.
She loves it. She still has some like I made this weird ass bobby pin crown that I twisted out of bobby pins and put a rhinestone in. I was like, oh, that's a tooth fairy crown. I recognize it. You know what?
In our next life, can you please be my mom again? I don't know why I just
Absolutely.
said again. That was weird. That was very weird. Okay, so
Wasn't that weird, Beck?
that was weird. That was very weird.
You're
Okay,
speaking
we're
to a psychic medium.
right.
It's
This
not
is
that
not
weird.
reincarnation. Do you have your shit together? Back to Indigenous Peoples Day and critical
Oh,
race theory.
that could be a long episode, that one would.
Oh, that would be a really fun one to do. So but anyway,
Anyway,
back to the whole um
Indigenous
idea
Peoples
of,
Day.
well, we're older now and we know that Santa isn't real, and apparently the tooth fairy is. We'll get back to that later.
And
And
American propaganda is not
it's
truthful.
okay to sort of look back at your childhood, and like when you realize Santa's not real, it's okay to look back at your childhood and reframe the way you think about it. Now that you know more, you can say, oh, that's why my mom got mad when I wanted to go in her closet when I was a little kid. Oh,
Mhm.
it helps you understand things about your
Yeah.
reality in a more realistic, truthful way. So
And we're
we
ready
know
to do
now.
that. We weren't ready to do it before, like in the 50s. We needed comfort after the wars. And now we want truth. We want to fix ourselves.
So we basically have a bunch of what we have is that fifth grade situation where one kid comes to school and says, guess what? Santa's not real. All your presents come from your parents. And a bunch of other kids saying, shut up, you're a liar, that's not true, Santa's real, I can't believe you, you're horrible. And so I framing it like that, I'm really glad you brought up Amanda Gorman, because that really makes me feel a lot less ooky about the entire situation, the entire
Yeah.
debate. Because yeah, Indigenous Peoples Day, like let's celebrate the fact that there were people on this land before we got here and quote unquote claimed it for a queen, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you were saying before, like, what did the Europeans even eat before they came here and tasted these tasty dishes, in the same sentence of, we came to this land that no one lived on, right? So where did those tasty
Yep.
dishes and that culture come from if no one was living here when we got here, right?
I mean, corn. It's a beautiful thing. It's got the juice.
So I've been doing some work with my church to sort of establish an honor tax program at my church. We've been sort of like, because of Indigenous Peoples Day, I'm just going to bring this up real quick. I
Yeah.
won't preach. Um, we started with land acknowledgement, and I'll even hear podcasters do a land acknowledgement for their podcast. Like, I just want to acknowledge this land belonged to the Lenape and the Susquehannock tribes. The land that we record on today, or the land that we worship on today, was owned by. And when I first heard that back in like April of 2020, when I started going back to church through Zoom, I was like, ooh, my church is so woke. That's so awesome. But after hearing it like 100 more times, I just felt like the words were so empty and they kind of made my skin crawl. It was like, yeah, we know this land is stolen, but what can you do? And it's like, I knew there had to be something that we could do. And
Yeah.
I started looking into it, and there are programs called honor tax programs or land rent or voluntary tax. And you can commit to paying a certain amount, and they call it tax. I prefer to call it land rent. And you can commit to paying a certain amount of money to an a still existing Indigenous tribe, or if the tribes no longer exist in your area, historical society or museum that is trying to preserve the culture of the indigenous tribes that used to use the land, or a program for indigenous people, for education. There's all kinds of ways you can make this payment. I'm not going to call it a donation because it's not a donation. It's an actual payment
Yeah.
for property. So my church is trying to get that started, and anyone can do it. People can do it for the land their house is on. People can do it for the land their school is on, the land they record on as a podcast. And there's a very special way to go about it so that you make sure that you preserve the sovereignty of the indigenous people that you're working with. And I won't go in, I'm going into too many boring details already, but it's something that's near and dear to my heart. And so I'm going to spend my day off on Monday working on that program, because I've been dragging my feet ever since I got my church's buy-in. I've been dragging my feet on the stuff I need to do to get that started for my church. So that's how I'm going to spend my Monday, my Indigenous Peoples Day, is to try and get that program off the ground for my church. And there
That's
actually
awesome.
is still a tribe in our area that still exists, and they have a little website. And
That's so cool.
yeah, so I'm going to try and get that started, because it just, I don't know, maybe it's like my 12-step spiritual health, part of me saying, harm was done. And if I can repair the harm in any way, I will feel better if I do so. So that's sort of where I'm coming at it from. There were people here. We got rid of them in very bad and sad and tragic ways. And we're still profiting off of their land. And if any of their ancestors are here and I can do something to sort of make amends to them, I would like to do so. And there was one other thing I was going to say and I can't remember. So your turn. Maybe I'll remember.
Um, I, that I have some feelings about. I mean, I agree with all you're saying, but
Oh, I know what it was.
okay.
One of the guys in my church, one of the old, like, crusty, been around forever guys, got up, because like in the Unitarian Universalist faith, when the person has done their sermon, the rest of the congregation gets to sort of speak back to them on it, and you don't have to agree, you can disagree too. And he got up to say, well, the Native Americans didn't even believe that you could own the land. Property was a concept that didn't even exist for them. So really, this land doesn't belong to anybody. So, giving them money for land that they don't believe they own isn't really the right thing to do. And I was like, oh my God, please stop making it more complicated than it
Did
is.
you think that through before you said it, sir?
And he
Are
was
we
saying,
going for the letter of the law or the spirit of the law? What are we doing?
and he was saying it sort of like with a grin on his face, tongue in cheek, devil's advocate, but still, it was like, please stop making things more complicated than they have to be and just agree with me. So, but go ahead, I interrupted you.
I was just thinking about how we look at history. I think that for my experience of learning history, I knew a little bit about Indigenous people's struggles growing up. Not a lot, but a little bit, because one of my favorite saints when I was a young Catholic girl was Blessed Kateri, who is now Saint Kateri Tekakwitha. And she was the one that, if I had made it to get confirmed as a Catholic, I would have taken her name as mine, Kateri Tekakwitha. Which I think in retrospect I couldn't have, because she wasn't a saint yet. She was blessed. Anyway, she was the first Indigenous American saint. That's the point. And I knew the story of her life and the struggles that she had been through. So I knew a little bit of stuff growing up. But when I started as an adult listening to the Stuff You Missed in History podcast, I learned so much about all of history, like all of these people that we just missed. Just not just Indigenous people and women and people of color, but mostly all of those. Like, it's a great podcast that covers all sorts of people, okay, but it also covers people you've never heard of, because history focuses on the white European guys, or our right. American history focuses on that. And it made me so angry and bitter that I'd missed out on all these stories growing up, and that, people I knew and was friends with growing up missed out on all those stories, and they could have, heard stories about that they could relate to better. And I was really mad about it. And then the more and more I learned about history, I did get sort of, I don't know if complacent's not quite the right word, but I history is full of beautiful, inspiring stories and creativity and bravery and exploration. And it's also full of atrocity and racism and slavery. So history is the life of human beings. And so, of course, it's going to be full of terrible atrocities that we want to fix and full of inspiring things that encourage us to move forward. And I think we need to kind of stop. A lot of people get all caught up in guilt and then they can't move forward. Yeah,
Mhm,
I know,
mhm.
because I've been
Yeah,
that way.
yeah.
We get stuck on the, oh gosh, the history of my ancestors is so awful, I can't ever make amends, so I'm just going to feel hopeless about it and just be depressed about it. And that's a stage a lot of people go through. Fine, but I think it's important to remember to step back and look at the whole picture. um yes, there are atrocities that we as Americans did not know about, and we need to try to fix it. But we don't need to, like, I do not need to feel guilty for it. I didn't do it. But just like any other wrong that's happening in my country or in my life or in my sphere of influence, I, I don't want to ignore it. I want to look at a wrong that's being done and say, I want to fix that. It doesn't matter if I'm involved with it. I want to fix it. It's in my community. It's in my sphere. I want to fix these things, not because I feel bad. That's the, no offense, the way I was raised, Catholic way of doing things. Like, you should feel bad and that should be your inspiration for fixing things. And like, that's okay if that works for some people. I don't think it's healthy, but that's fine. But for me, feeling bad about a thing is not the best reason to fix a thing. We should fix a thing because it needs to be fixed.
I I really like that point. That is a really, really good point. And so before we sign off, should we like um come up with some ways that our one viewer listener can celebrate Indigenous Peoples Day? Should we like give Manny some homework for this Monday where he's listening to this podcast?
Yes.
Okay. So what should Manny do today to celebrate Indigenous Peoples Day?
Manny, this weekend, especially on Monday, I think you should eat nothing but food that's indigenous to the Americas.
So just corn. You can only eat corn all day on Monday.
Corn, pumpkins, peanuts, peppers, vanilla, chocolate, blueberries. Shall I go on?
Oh my gosh, man. You just know your shit.
Well, I
You
find it
are
interesting.
the goddess of having your shit together
Potatoes,
today.
don't forget potatoes. Potatoes, peanuts, chocolate,
Wait.
vanilla, corn, pumpkins, turkeys,
Oh yes.
blueberries.
Turkeys.
All the
Turkeys.
delicious things are from the Americas.
Wow,
Everything
that's
good that we like
fantastic.
to eat, it's from here. So
Avocados? Are avocados from the Americas? There are no avocados in Europe?
I think they're from more tropical islands, but I'd have to look it up. But yeah, I think avocados are from the
It's
Americas.
not just that they grow well in Mexico and California.
No, I think they're natively from there.
Okay, cool, 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 cool. All
Yeah, I
right.
will confirm that later though. Frank?
Yeah, we're definitely gonna have to have when we do these off the cuff, no research episodes, we're definitely gonna have like a fact checking from Frank, and he can just either like post it in the show notes or he and I can record it later because we totally have no idea what we're talking about. Although you seem to have a better idea than I do. Oh, there he
Yeah,
is.
just
Hey,
about
Frank.
food.
Turkey.
I think food's interesting.
All right, Frank, in 5 minutes or less, check our facts.
Well, turkey. If you eat meat, eat some turkey because turkey is the main animal of North America that was domesticated.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, there you go.
Mm-hmm. True story.
Which opens up a whole big box of like things about I don't know. I don't know if we should get into it. So
Bring it, Frank.
Jared Diamond has a book called Guns, Germs, and Steel. He was a biologist, not a historian. He was studying birds in Papua New Guinea. And a native came up to him one day on the beach and said, "Why you white men have so much cargo and us Papua New Guineans have so little cargo?" Cargo meaning just stuff, material goods. And he started thinking about it it kind of bothered him. Like, why is that really? These are smart people. They're really no different than me in any ways of capabilities, but why do we have all this stuff and they don't? And as a biologist, he saw that the island did not have as many resources provided to the community to um, basically build civilization as did where he came from. So he started to study history from that perspective, and he came up with a theory that some people are very much against. They think it's like fatalist in a way, but where like, why wasn't it that a bunch of Cherokees and Navajos and Apaches got on big wooden ships with sails, sailed eastward across the Atlantic, landed in Europe, and then colonized Europe and enslaved the Portuguese and genocided the British? Like, why didn't that happen? And there aren't too many arguments against it.
Because they're better than us. No, sorry,
Okay.
that was just a joke.
Well, there's like, well, A, because they're more ethical people and they were happy to be where they were and they didn't want to build things as complicated as that. Or it's like B, like they're not smart enough to do all that, so they don't have the capability to do that, right? So like the first one is just Pollyannish, the second one is racist. And then the third one has to do with geography. And he points out that if you look at all the major civilizations in history, they're all in a certain area of the world where, like, for one, it goes kind of east and west in a certain spread. Because if you're here and you have plants and animals that work here, and then for some reason you have to move here, those same plants and animals will work in this new environment here. They won't work so good up here or down here, though, because the climate shifts as you go up and down, but not so much left to right. And he talks about animal domestication. There's like 200 potentially domesticatable animals on the planet. We've only really domesticated about 22 of them in large scale use, and 14 of those come from the like the Middle East area, the Caucasus, the cow, the chicken, the pig, all those. In the Americas, there weren't as many domesticatable animals. The turkey was domesticated in North America, and South America was the llama, the alpaca. Some people would say the guinea pig, right? Um,
Aw.
Africa, right? People say, well, like,
Oh, furry potatoes.
so they had horses in, like, in southern Europe and in the Near East, but they had zebras in Africa. Like, it's the same thing, a zebra and a horse, but it's really not. A zebra, as much as it may seem like a horse, is totally different temperamentally because the zebra evolved in the land of big game predators. So the
Ah.
zebra is really freaking skittish, and you can't get close to it like you can with a horse, right?
Oh
So
wow.
there's places in the world where there were plentiful resources. And with those resources came the people who happened to be living there were able to build civilization and society up really easily. And then other people, for instance, in Papua New Guinea, all they had was these wild pigs and this big, huge tree, palm tree, that if they cut it down, they could get like a milk that was inside of it. But it would take the whole tribe to get this tree down, so that doesn't leave a lot of guys time to sit and like invent ships and sailing and stuff, right? Um, and you can't feed and grow. So I think that point is clear. Now, because of that, it's almost like the game was set. Humans evolved, we spread all out, and then the ones that were in the pockets with a lot of resources developed a more sophisticated society, and then began to move on out of their areas to the other ones, and then dominate the other ones in the other places. So
Because
uh,
everyone else was too busy surviving.
I don't know. I think they were not necessarily. I think they were thriving. I think civilizations in other places were thriving, but thriving in different ways with different limits. Um, but that's just the thing I like to think about a lot. Like I would love
Yeah.
to write an alternate history book where it was the Mayans that went across the ocean and landed in Rome and dominated those people. I think it's important to show that, like you were talking about guilt. I think guilt is a really problematic factor when it comes to us moving forward with some of these issues because we like to think like the Europeans came over here and did this to the indigenous Americans, and it's that now we used to say the indigenous people were savages and the Europeans were like more sophisticated, right? And so they're the dominant race and they take America and that's the good happy story. And now it's almost like, no, the Europeans are the dumb evil savages, and we had these noble people here in the Americas and they came and they raped and they pillaged. And it's really not that. It's there's humans and then there's humans. And some of these humans came over and did some human stuff. And then, like
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Humans made human history.
like if there had been more resources in the Americas, the way we feel about evil Christopher Columbus would be how we are feeling about the, noble indigenous person. Do you understand what I'm saying?
point taken. But also, our trade relations with Italy are perfectly fine right now, so I don't think we need to celebrate Columbus anymore. I think we're good.
I understand that was like the political reasoning for creating that holiday, but the thing about that holiday,
Way to lasso it back in.
the thing is about that holiday, that's not what that holiday was experienced by the population of America, though. It wasn't experienced as a business deal. It was experienced as ethnic pride holiday, which, like, maybe behind the scenes it had to do with some sort of conspiracy business stuff, but it sucked to be an Italian in this country
True.
for a long time.
That's true. That's a good point.
And so people, when they think, why do we have this Columbus holiday? That holiday was as important back then as Indigenous pride is today. Italian pride was as important in the 1930s and 40s as gay pride and whatever else you want to say is now.
Way to lasso that in, Frank.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Irish need not apply. Like, it was a real thing. Now, I'm not going to say all ethnicities had it as bad as others, because there were some that had it definitely worse. I mean, I'll never forget the story of Mary Turner, right? You guys know about Mary Turner? Her husband was convicted of killing a white guy that he probably didn't kill, and she complained about it, so they tied her upside down from a tree, slit her pregnant belly open, the baby fell out, stomped. Yeah. Hard. See what I'm saying? So I do recognize that, like, I don't know, maybe something like that happened to Irish women, maybe something like that happened to Italian women. I'm not going to try to say that maybe the worst stories I've heard have been about blacks and Native Americans, I guess, to be quite frank about it. But the point remains, it wasn't
what
always,
else could you be?
It wasn't always fun to be Italian in this country. So there was, for a while there, a good purpose to a day like Columbus Day. Now, does that mean we need to necessarily get rid of an Italian Pride Day? No. Does that mean it should be about a dickhead like Columbus? No. So I think maybe yes, we should have an Indigenous Pride Day, but do we need to slap it down on top of Columbus Day and get rid of that? Like, no, make Indigenous Pride Day Tuesday and make Monday Joe Pesci.
That's a 4-day weekend.
Joe Pesci
Pesci Day.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because there are Italians that we should be able to, like, celebrate it. Like, yeah, Joe Pesci's done a lot for this country. You know?
That's the first thing I thought.
Youth.
Yeah. So this weekend, eat turkey, watch Goodfellas, and, celebrate the good side of the native people, the good side of the Italian people. Fuck the douchebag natives, fuck the douchebag Italians, right? Every population.
Fuck the douchebag capitalists.
Right.
And,
Okay, this segment is called Frank Solves Everything. That was really good insights. Thank you, Frank.
I'm just saying, take down the statue of Stonewall Jackson or whatever, put up one of Tennessee Williams or William Faulkner. You know what I mean?
Or some Pesci.
Some cool Southerners. There were some dudes from the South who were actually really good dudes. And, like, we don't have to erase Southernness by getting rid of the dickhead Southerners.
See, whenever I think I'm looking at history through a critical lens, Frank comes and wipes my lens off and I see it even clearer. Thank you, Frank.
Word. Well done, Frank.
No problem.
That was awesome.
Last two things. One, the Greek guy who found out, he calculated, he not only proved that it was round, but he calculated the circumference within 5%.
Oh yeah, that's right.
2,500 years ago.
5%.
Just by having a guy pace count between, like, two cities and then measuring shadows and stuff.
That's math on a whole new level.
His name was Eratosthenes. Was one. And then number two is there's an incredible little show called Assume the Position that you have to find and watch. It's not easy to find. Sometimes you have to find it on one of those pirating sites, but it's worth it. It's all about history. and he tells all these stories about exactly what you were reading, Beck, about how the first story of Columbus was written, and he equates it to like modern day things. He talks about how the guy who wrote that was like the Bruckheimer of his day, and he needed a new big hit, to follow up. The Legend of Sleepy Hollow, which was like Transformers for him, he needed a new thing. But he goes through all these myths of history that we believe. I don't
Very
I was
cool.
gonna say like macaroni, but
check out Assume the
Very
Position
cool.
with Robert Wuhl. So
All right. Love it. All right. Well, this has been a great episode with zero planning because Frank is really smart. Thank you for saving our butts. And until next week, keep your shit together.
keep your shit together. Keep your shit together, America.